Hello dear friend, it's time to talk about why the hell I got into Reaper after all. This video isn't really about that of course, but more about all the good stuff I like about the Reaper digital workstation I've been using for the past few years. Well, probably about 5 years. I'm not campaigning for anyone. In general, I think everyone should work in what they feel comfortable working in. Well, now I'm going to tell you about some of the features that make my life in Reaper very easy. Okay, here we go. This is my face hidden in the bottom right corner. What you are seeing here, dear friends, is the infamous Reaper. This section provides you with a live feed of my conversations. One immensely useful feature that improves efficiency and eliminates the need for individuals who used to work for me in exchange for money is auto color coding. This feature is available as part of the special SWS extensions. Wondering what it does? Once you set the parameters, it enables you to assign specific icons and colors to channels with certain names. This proves to be incredibly convenient. For instance, guitars are represented in green and vocals are assigned the color red. Can you guess the color that is designated for the bass, drums, synths, and so on? Super handy. Yeah, by the way, it would work interestingly if you wrote a demo. So this is feature number 1. You do it right here. Extensions, and here we have the auto color icon layout option. My Boost subscribers have this config available. They can grab it. Well, in principle, it's easy to make it yourself by assigning the necessary colors and icons. Auto color coding. Okay? Very convenient. The next number of our program is the most important feature, which I think is very, very useful and saves a ton of time. It's called render queue. What is that? It's a render queue, if you translate that literally. When I open up the render window, there it is. Well, for example, I have a mix of these few elements that we have here. Let's say it's a simple mix. Let's say I've made some version of it. Great, the mix is finished, says Ilya. What do I do next? What I do next is this. I call it mix. Queued render. I check that everything is in the parameters I need. Master mix, entire project. I press. Mix, by the way, one more important thing. Okay, we'll talk about wildcards separately. Master mix, entire project. Dither. Let's call the directory mixes mix 1. We don't really have audio. Well, okay, so we'll have audio. Let's drop some audio from Media Explorer in here. There's some blue drums, 2448, queued render. Add to render queue. Here I can set a special jewel, a delay on the render, so that everything has time to load if there are some sample libraries and so on. I click OK. Then I decide to do a version without vocals. You know, what people call a minus or an instrumental. I mute the vocals. I press mix instrumental. I click queued render. Add to render queue. OK. Next I want to do a version without the master limiter. Let's say we had some kind of effect on the master. Let's say it was real limit, although in my case it would most often be an invisibles limiter. I turn that plugin off, or on the contrary, I turn it on. I want to make a version with a limiter in this case. I call it limit. I add it to the render queue. So, in short, in this way I can make any number of mixes that I want a version with backing vocals, without backing vocals. For example, if there are 2 vocals, male and female, with female or without female, with effects, without effects, with master limiter, without master limiter, in different resolutions and formats. Then I go into Open Render Queue, and I see a list of all the mixes, including all the stems I need to render, in this window. I click Render All. And then Reaper takes an hour or 2, depending on the size of the track. The files I need are currently being exported. Located next to the render queue are several crucial functions. One of the most important is the render matrix, which is essentially a region render matrix. To provide an analogy, let's say we are working on an album. In this scenario, the different tracks can be considered as objects from which we can create regions. These regions can be given specific names, such as Track 1, Track 2, and Track 3. Track 1, Track 2, and Track 3. For each of these regions, I can choose mix versions, for example, master mix. Or, if I don't need a master mix, I can choose not to export it. Specific stems that I want. For example, for the first track, I should export these stems. For the second track, these. And for the third track, all the tracks that I can check the all stamps box, then in the renderer when I open up. In order to render specific tracks, I am able to choose the region render matrix within the render box. Additionally, there is a feature called wildcards, which are essentially variables. These wildcards play a vital role in the rendering process. You can use specific features that allow automatic signing of tracks and the resulting files obtained after rendering. This also enables you to sign anything with different information. For instance, if you want to name the track while exporting it, you can utilize the selected tracks stamps feature. This approach can assist when you have written a song and wish to export it to a sound engineer, which means exporting my selected tracks. Then I will name them wildcard, track number, which is the track number. Then there is the wildcard project and the wildcard track. As you can observe, there are numerous wildcards. These wildcards pertain to various parameters, including sample rate, time date, and object information. So let's focus on the project and track. Now, in order to provide a suitable title for the next character, I will need to consider that the current project is named untitled or unsaved. Therefore, the title of the next character will be 02 untitled guitars, as it serves as an example of a guitar in this case. Accordingly, the subsequent tracks will be titled walk, bass, and so on. This feature proves to be incredibly convenient and aids in the organization of exported stems. It is quite beneficial. Moving on, let's address another feature that I am particularly fond of, which is the channel-based and FX-based oversampling. What does this mean exactly? Well, imagine having an effects chain with a specific number of plugins. Now suppose I want to add a decapitator into that chain. Currently, it resides in this rather unattractive plugin search box, which ironically functions exceptionally well, may I add. So let's say I do have a decapitator. And I don't know, Pro Q3. Let's put it this way. I can use oversampling for those plugins that don't have an oversampling setting, for example, decapitator. By right-clicking on an effect in the FX chain, I have the option to choose chain oversampling or FX instance oversampling. Chain oversampling applies oversampling to the entire chain of effects, while FX instance oversampling applies it solely to the selected effect. This feature is particularly beneficial when working with effects that introduce harmonic distortion, saturation, dynamic processing, and similar situations. Personally, I have yet to encounter this feature in any other software, and I find it incredibly useful and impressive. Moving on, I would like to discuss the organization of folders and track devices in Reaper. Unlike traditional workstations, Reaper does not categorize channels into specific types such as audio, MIDI, video, or multi-channel. Instead, I can freely create channels and name them according to my preference. Despite the unconventional approach, I appreciate the flexibility and simplicity it offers. It becomes a folder. In a very simple way, I'll take the channels I want and drag and drop them into that channel. Okay, not this channel, more like this channel, but this channel. Aquela missed, haters over here. So when I press play, we'll see that this channel's display is twitching. Not only can we utilize this channel as a means of visually grouping tracks, but we can also employ it as a bus to process groups of instruments or the entire mix, depending on our needs. There are various ways in which people make use of folders. Additionally, it's worth mentioning that a channel in Reaper can house a maximum of 128 channels. Furthermore, it's important to note that this track can be monophonic or stereophonic. Idiots, you will say, why do you need 128 channels? I'll answer, have you heard about such format as Dolby Atmos? Have you heard of multi-channel formats? And for example, if you want to divide your signal into 3 parts of the spectrum and process it in parallel with different chains of effects, it's very convenient. And it's actually easy to customize. And each channel in Reaper, including the master channel, can contain up to 128 channels. That's absolutely incredible. We can put video on the same track. On the same track we can upload a picture with a screenshot of a guitar pedal on which you've cranked the sound you want, or with the settings of a guitar amp. On the same track you can throw objects with text. Well, in general there are a lot of options, but how convenient and intuitive it is, I really like it. The next point is the convenience of customizing sidechain effects. After especially Pro Tools and Logic, this is heaven and earth for me. For example, we have our bass track, which is kind of conventionally a bass track. We can add the plugin we want on it. Let's say it's Pro C2, which is the classic, famous, well-known compressor that some people have been raving about. Let's say that what we want to do next, in order to connect the bass channel to the drums channel, regardless of the duplicated information, follow these steps. Simply drag the mouse from the routing panel to the plugin. Once done, the send will automatically be assigned to either the 3rd or 4th channel. Moreover, within the plugin's routing settings, the 3rd through 4th channel will be automatically assigned to the sidechain. Therefore, by enabling externalized mode for the sidechain in this plugin, the chaining from the drum channel will be established. To clarify, the drum channel or the drum channel itself can be used. Add the sidechain to my list for convenience. Now, on to the next task. Very convenient routing. Anything I don't want I can send wherever I want. I can have a master section. Parallel channels can go out to physical outputs, for example. There's also Reaper Loopback, which allows you to send up to 128 channels anywhere in Reaper. But it should be understood, not only between Reaper channels, but also, for example, between Reaper tabs, parallel open projects, or parallel open Reaper instances, which is even more interesting, but more on that later. The same flexible routing is available for other types of information, not only for audio, but also for MIDI. We shouldn't forget about that either. Just as we should not forget that we don't have any channel limits. Number of MIDI tracks, number of instrumental tracks, number of tracks, number of folders, and it's weird why we should have any restrictions at all. One feature that I particularly enjoy is the excellent organization of effects and the ability to search for effects. In addition to being able to assign any desired effect to a button, which I will explain later, there are multiple options to access the effects menu. It is also possible for me to create my own categories for effects. Harmonic distortion, mastering instruments, reverbs. Basically different subcategories. I can also access categories by developer, categories by processor type. Well, the great thing is that if I click on FX, I have a filter I can write in a search. Reverb, and see most of my reverbs, or there, seventh heaven. That's now available in Pro Tools as well. It wasn't there until recently. It was pretty ridiculous. But that kind of search certainly speeds things up a lot and optimizes our work. I also really like the ability to save chains of effects. Effect containers consisting of several multi-effects and routing them. Well, there's probably no point in showing this. This is done when you have created some kind of complex chain. You right-click and save it as a container, or as an FX chain. This is available in all stations, but I really like how it works here. The next feature that shocked me is the ability to load multiple instances of the Ripper in parallel. That is, I can have two Riper instances open on my computer at the same time. Well, or three Rippers. I don't know who needs that. The situation is simple. Let's say I'm making a video on how to do something in a Ripper. The audio from that video can be sent in parallel to another Ripper and recorded. However, what's truly remarkable is that we have the ability to not only use multiple instances of the Reaper, but also open multiple tabs right at the top. With some customization, I have the option to run background projects by simply right-clicking and selecting the corresponding option. This allows the Ripper to function simultaneously across multiple open projects. In fact, I can even use one Ripper to record the proceedings of one project and transfer them to another. This is particularly convenient when filming videos and you're unsure about the quality of the initial recording, in which case you can have a backup recording in a parallel project. Moreover, if you need to document various aspects such as the mixer's output, questions from the hall via a microphone or the presenter's microphone, you can simply open another project simultaneously. It's incredibly practical. The next feature I find impressive, although it may not be surprising to some, is as follows. Dry Wet is the name of the plugin. Each open plugin features the option to swap in any effect parallelly at the top right corner. While this may not be groundbreaking for Studio One users, it is indeed a significant development for Pro Tools users. I don't know how it is in other workstations, and in general I don't want to dive into it now. Another of the interesting things here is the ability to do the so-called Delta Solo. Delta Solo allows you to hear the difference between clean and processed signal. That is, to hear exactly what happens, what part of the signal is added after processing. Well, for example, after saturation, some distortion or parallel compression or, I don't know, dynamic derizoning. Delta Solo is very useful too. I recommend it. The next feature that I really like is called Monitor FX. Many people are familiar with it. It gives you the ability to put a particular group of plugins on top of all your Reaper projects. These plugins, which belong to the Monitor FX group, do not affect the overall sound of the project. They have no impact on the rendering process whatsoever. Here you can make use of the correction system to adjust things like virtual rooms. For instance, you have Listen To, which allows you to send the signal over the internet. You also have Isolate, which lets you listen to specific parts of the spectrum. And then there's Streamliner, which enables you to preview how the signal will sound on different streaming services. Sometimes Waves NX also lives here, for example, if I'm on tour somewhere and I need to make some edits in my headphones. It's very convenient because there's no risk of this classic situation where a sound engineer videotaped something with headphone correction on the master and then exported the project with headphone correction on the master. Basically, Monitor FX, super useful and convenient. One of my favorite features is Reaper Web Remote, which allows users to control Reaper using a web browser. It enables any internet-connected device to access various tabs for controlling Reaper. This feature provides basic functionality and enhances remote controlling capabilities. The basic option, named Basic, offers several features. It includes control to solo mute and adjust the volume for each individual track. This option can be accessed from your tablet or phone or any device with a browser. It provides a comprehensive management system, allowing you to easily switch between different regions and view them. Overall, Basic has everything you may need for audio control and organization. We can have access to transportation to mute solo. It's very useful and convenient, but actually that's not all. Also in the web remote browser there is, for example, such a feature as More Me. More Me is a special feature of Reaper for creating monitor mixes. For artists, for example, we'll call a mix headphones and we'll send in a vocal, a demo, and that's it. After that, when I open up our Safari and assign the output to the channel I want, for example, Q left right, in the browser right here in More Me mode, the mode is customizable in the settings. Who is interested? Write in a private message. Just kidding. A headphones mix will appear with only what is typed into the mix. For example, vocals and music, or vocals, music and reverb. If the drummer picks his mix, he'll have drums in there. If the sound engineer picks his mix, he'll have everything in there. The great thing about this thing is that we, for example, sometimes during vocal recording, we open the controller in the browser just in the next window so that we don't have to go to the mixer in the program, so that nothing unnecessary interferes. We don't get distracted from the recording process and have on a separate monitor just the control of the artist's mix. Either I can do it from my phone or from my tablet. It's a super convenient feature. Moving on. In addition to More Me, there is also such a feature as metronome, that is visual click. What is that? On any device on the network, we can, by pressing apply, a visual click that allows us to see the fractions. This can be useful too. Though quite strange and unfamiliar, sometimes we need to work with a silent metronome. For example, if we're writing a lot of people with headphones on and don't want the click to climb, and there could be a million scenarios in general. Anyway, Reaper's web control, I'm not going to talk about it at length right now because there's lots and lots and lots of interesting stuff. It would take too long to describe it all. Track search and track management. There is such a thing in Reaper as Track Manager. It's very convenient and useful. Here I can, in huge sessions, find if we had 800 tracks and I didn't know where the guitar was, I'd write guitar and I'd see just the guitar. And from here I could also include it in the TCP window. Or here's the master, for example, I could turn it off in TCP. TCP is the Reaper's edit window, MCP is the mixer control panel, track control panel and mixer control panel. I have the capability to deactivate specific tracks that I desire. Currently we only have the link activated. However, in the windows where I need them, I can reset the search and regain access to all the channels I want. This feature makes it very convenient and efficient to find the desired channel quickly. Furthermore, you can also observe any delay on the channel here, if needed. To access the effects on a channel, simply double-click on it. Additionally, activate the channel for recording purposes. Overall, it is an incredibly useful and practical tool. Another intriguing and valuable feature of Reaper is the routing matrix, which can be found under the routing matrix button. The routing matrix is a helpful tool that allows us to assign inputs and outputs. It's particularly useful during sound checks and recording large live sets, where we may have a high number of channels, typically around 110 to 120, that need to be meticulously checked. By using the matrix, we can easily and quickly see which channels the signals are coming from. This is especially beneficial for performing correct and swift patches. Essentially, it acts as a matrix B patch, displaying all our inputs and outputs. However, an important aspect of Reaper is that we are not limited to using only the routing matrix. Stereo, odd, even pairs. We can safely have inputs not only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but also 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, regardless of how the inputs are patched on stage or in the console or in the studio. Accordingly, this allows you to do both routing of inputs to channels and routing of channels to other channels, folders, subgroups, and so on. A super handy feature of routing metrics. Well, let's move on. The next feature I wanted to tell you about is Reaper Portable. What is Reaper Portable? Portable is the ability to install Ripper on any external flash drive, hard drive, SD card and walk around the world with it, upload it to the cloud, and be able to download your Ripper, which weighs in the form of a megabyte installation file. As an installation file, I estimate it to be around 30 megabytes. We'll check it later, but for now, let's discuss the unpacked version of the program. When fully set up and ready to use, the Ripper will weigh approximately 150 megabytes. This includes all your personalized settings, layouts, keyboard commands, scripts, toolbars, and anything essential for your convenience. Your station can always reside in the cloud, accessible from any studio worldwide. With just 3 minutes, you can log in and launch it on any machine without leaving any traces. Rest assured, it will be the same familiar Ripper you are used to. In addition to discussing the program's size, I'd like to express my utmost admiration for its incredible flexibility. In the Ripper, to track the development of the program, there is such a resource called Landolid. I will show it to you now. You can find all the current versions under development posted there. Additionally, we can access the What's New file, which admittedly has an unattractive appearance, but it allows us to read about the latest features being added, what features are being improved or modified, and what updates were in what version of the Ripper. It's very useful and convenient. More than that, I always know what the Ripper development community is working on and what features will be added. I find it unbelievable that joining the Ripper beta testing program does not require signing a non-disclosure agreement, which is typically required for other programs. This unique feature makes it exceptional, openly communicating with users about the details of the software they are currently working on. This fosters a sense of transparency and keeps users well informed. So, here we can see how much the Ripper installer weighs. It weighs in at 6 megabytes. Now imagine how quickly you can download a 26 megabyte program. The next big thing is project tabs. The idea is that whatever is going on with audio, perhaps other than recording audio for live video, I am capable of working on multiple projects simultaneously. This feature is useful when I have various projects open in tabs that require my attention, ensuring that I do not forget anything. It is also convenient when I need to focus on a specific project, complete all tasks within it, and then return to a more encompassing project. However, it is not necessary to activate the Run Background Projects option, and we can simply leave the tabs as they are, running exclusively, one tab at a time. Naturally, there are very useful options here, like close all projects except the current one, close all projects. Well, basically run stopped background projects, play stopped. Here I was clicking run background projects for you, so everything was disappearing. I think if we click run stopped background projects, then when we switch, the sound will still be going, right? That's fine. I hit the wrong button, another occasion for a stabbing comment. Returning to our RAMs. In any case, tabs are highly helpful and advantageous. Sometimes they can make life more convenient. As mentioned earlier, there is a feature called Rear Loopback that I have utilized in Reaper. In fact, I have dedicated a total of 64 channels to this function. Would you like to know how it functions? Within each channel in the routing, I can select a loopback output, which I can send anywhere, as I told you before. Well, for example, let's use AUX loopback 7. I like the number 7. Let's send our signal there, open another tab, and as an input for the channel, we'll select AUX loopback 7. Click here, record, monitor, and we can safely record the speech that is sent to us from the first project into another project. By the way, right up here on the Tabs tab, we can see the status of each of the tabs, where playback is going on and where recording is going on. As you can see, this project is recording. We can send up to 64 channels in this way wherever we want. That's useful. The next feature is the ability to edit and process video. Although it may not be as powerful as DaVinci, in Reaper you can still easily edit and process video. It also allows you to work with an unlimited number of video files, making it incredibly convenient. Additionally, you can manage video tracks seamlessly. Next up, we have an exciting new feature to share with you. We're almost at the finish line, guys. Currently, the video duration stands at 32 minutes, which is quite lengthy. So let's dive into the topic of toolbars. To be honest, I only use this feature about 10% of the time. However, there are people who assign custom toolbars that automatically appear based on their current task. Unlike their fancy toolbars, mine is pretty basic. It consists of just one toolbar with a few buttons that I've personally created. These buttons allow me to switch the grid resolution, open the settings window, activate my favorite EQ, which can also be assigned to a button, toggle on the Ripper's regular EQ, and hide or show waveforms. For instance, when I click on Hide Envelopes, nothing seems to happen, but that's not a concern. Now, let's take a closer look at the instructions to see why it's no longer functioning properly. And well, there are several other features that I frequently use. One such feature is the demo solo, which allows me to reference or copy channels without having to include any additional objects. This proves to be quite convenient during recording sessions as it saves time and eliminates the need to assign the same input multiple times. In fact, this functionality is so efficient that up to 32 similar toolbars can be created, allowing for seamless switching between them. These toolbars can even be further organized into tabs, making navigation and access even easier. Additionally, the buttons on these toolbars can be animated, adding a touch of visual appeal. Furthermore, the ability to include icons with favorite plugins on the toolbars allows for even more customization. However, it's important to note that while I have shared the features that I personally use most frequently, it is worth mentioning that the software allows for the creation of up to 32 toolbars, allowing users to include any and every tool they may possibly require. Lastly, an extraordinarily useful feature known as external editors will be showcased. This feature can be accessed within the settings and found under the External Editors tab. Here, as an example, I have chosen Isotope RxX as my external editor. What makes this feature remarkable is its ability to seamlessly integrate with the software. Whenever I come across an issue with an object, I can simply press the Alt key and double-click on the object, which will then open up in the external editor, Rx. However, I currently refrain from employing this feature as OBS occasionally displays erratic behavior when faced with changes in sample rates or the opening of new programs, which may in turn affect the recording process. Like this, it's very frustrating to record a 3-hour video and then find out that the sound in it was recorded only 10 minutes in. So I'm not going to take any chances right now. You and I will all benefit from this. Next, in Rx, I can clean up, repair any problems, click Save in Rx, and the same file will automatically be immediately uploaded to my session in Reaper. Convenient? Very. Scripts. The next useful feature. Well, you can talk about it endlessly. There are a lot of interesting scripts. In action lists, there is, well, for example, my favorite script, which is called Project. Here it is. Archiver. 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 Project Archiver. A project archiver. Which allows, it's an add-on module for Reaper that allows you to archive projects, for example, in a 24-bit flag, greatly reducing the amount of data, or a script, well, not even really a script, called Music Math, which allows you to calculate directly in Reaper, convert durations to milliseconds, or Hertz notes to Hertz. Well, in general, that's handy too, in different strings. Pay attention. There are simpler scenarios as well. As I showed you before, for example, I've got a duplicate without item script right here that copies the channel that's being recorded on without the audio on it. Well, for example, you're writing a vocal and the vocalist says to you, and now we're going to do the second half of the verse, but it's overlapping where I start singing. So it's important that it sounds like the tail of the first track and we start writing the second track. What are you doing in this Pro Tools? You create a second track, assign the same input, sign it the same way. This is what I do. I click duplicate without items and I go. Or if I don't have to, what was on this channel, I press dub and arm. The previous channel is muted, a new one is created and activated into the record. And we can immediately write a new part, for example. It's very convenient and interesting. You have complete freedom to script Reaper in any manner you desire. You have the ability to instruct it on any sequence of actions. It is even possible to create cycle actions. For instance, I possess a script that is assigned to Stream Deck, currently being utilized by OBS, hence I cannot demonstrate it to you. By simply selecting the desired channels, clicking a button, a track folder is automatically generated, Files are then automatically dragged into this folder, and a dialog box prompts me to enter the name of the new folder, such as drums. Consequently, the drums folder instantly materializes. These are just minor examples of what can be accomplished through Reaper scripting. Countless other possibilities also exist. Though some assert that Reaper turns individuals into programmers, that is not necessarily the case. If you merely need to address a complex problem, it can be accomplished and with great efficiency, and that's very cool. One thing I have to mention is the remarkable and supportive community of individuals behind the development of Reaper. On the forum, I've noticed instances like this occur frequently. People suggest, "Hey guys, why don't we add this feature?" And within just a few weeks, that exact feature becomes a reality in Reaper. As a result, Reaper distinguishes itself from other workstations due to its exceptional functionality. The only area that could be improved is its visual aesthetics. Postscript. There's a very useful mode called spectral pics. It looks like the following. We can display a wave in the form of a traditional waveform. Waveform as we see it now on the channel, or we can display it as a spectral pics. Literally one moment. Literally one moment. I'm going to do an important thing here. I'm going to switch over here. This is my streaming deck, and I'm going to turn on spectral pics. So we'll see different parts of the spectrum in different colors. But worse than that, we can check out the spectral peaks where we can observe a spectrogram similar to the one in RX. Although it may appear a bit more intimidating, it can be quite useful. Additionally, we have the capability to modify the spectrogram by incorporating various data points. This feature offers even more versatility to its functionality. Useful, especially, for example, I don't know how much spectrogram picks, but spectral picks helps, for example, when editing vocals or bass, when we can see we'll have each note have a different color. So when we need to find a fade out somewhere in the verse part, we can just look at the color instead of listening to the whole thing. And then we can listen to whether this note suits us or not and move on. I think that's the end of the video. That was a really cool and useful first part of the video. Why I like Reaper so much and why I got into Reaper. Feel free to write questions in the comments. I'll probably go into more detail later. And over the next few days, I'll be sure to reminisce. Heck, I haven't covered such an important feature. I didn't tell you about such an important feature. And then there's this, and then there's that. And of course, there's going to be another part of this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all again. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe. Subscribe to my Instagram. Anyway, all that bilberry, please subscribe, because that's important too, as it turns out. Yo!